Good evening. So we are back with another reading with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. We are on Stave 2, Part 4. And tonight I am going to just let you know that if you want to skip ahead in the video, go to the marker down here below and you can jump ahead and just listen to the story. Otherwise, if you are a visual person, it is when I pick up this book again. For tonight, there may be a little bit of spoilers as to what is coming next. So if you don't want spoilers, jump ahead. But hopefully this doesn't spoil too much. Now, as I've been reading this, I have been discovering that the movie versions of A Christmas Carol aren't actually quite all that accurate to it. But the oldest version of, or the oldest movie version of A Christmas Carol is quite accurate, as well as, interestingly enough, A Muppet's Christmas Carol with Michael Caine. Now, this is just my personal opinion, but I really feel like they followed very true to the story. And if you know anything about A Muppet's Christmas Carol and its classic adorable characters and light the lamp, not the rat scene, I think that you would agree with me on the telling of the original book and the telling of the Muppet version are very, very similar. I feel the same way about Muppet's Treasure Island, and I feel that it's very interesting that they actually keep up with the story very, very well. But in the context of the film, there was a song removed from the film. It is called When Love Is Gone. And this was removed because a producer or a director thought it was too sad for children. And he also thought that it slowed down the movie, which the latter I somewhat agree with, but the part that they took it out of in context doesn't make sense for the flow of the movie and doesn't make sense as to why Rizzo the rat is crying at the end, nor does it make sense to Scrooge's reaction at the end of that scene. Basically, the fiancée, Belle, comes in. She says a line, and then all of a sudden you see a crying rat. And her leaving. And it doesn't make sense for the entirety of the scene. However, recently, due to the complaints that they've been getting from the fan base, as well as the I think it's the 25th or the 30th anniversary or the 20th anniversary of the movie. They've remastered it and re-released it on Disney Plus. So if you are watching the version on Disney Plus, this year you can actually go in through the features and you can watch it with the song still intact, instead of doing what I did for I think 6 years now, which is watching it, pausing it, going onto YouTube, finding the song, and then going back and rewatching it, or just digging out my old VHS tape and throwing that in and watching it with the song intact. But When Love Is Gone is a beautiful song, and it was beautifully composed and beautifully sung by Michael Caine. And the actress, played by Meredith Braun, she sings it so gorgeously, so beautifully, and it's actually my favorite song of the entire show. Other than There's Only One More Sleep Till Christmas, which is what Kermit sings. I also love, I think it's the one that the Spirit of Christmas Present sings. And it starts off with, it's in the singing of a street corner choir. I love that song. that song to me is what Christmas and what a Christmas carol really means and what it really, really feels. So very passionate about my Muppet characters. I often call myself a bit of a Muppet. And I actually produce it now, or I actually publicize it quite a bit. Now, in A Christmas Carol itself, Dickens didn't use that precise phrase, "when love is gone," in the book. So here's a little bit of your spoiler if you haven't seen A Muppet's Christmas Carol, or if you haven't read further in the book. He doesn't actually use the particular phrase. However, he did write a poem called Lucy's Song. And Lucy's Song is in his work, The Village Croquettes, or Croquets, which states, "Love is not a feeling to pass away like the balmy breath of a summer day. It is not, it cannot be laid aside. It is not a thing to forget or hide. It clings to the heart as the ivy clings to the old oak tree." This suggests that the belief in love's lasting power. In David Copperfield, another of Charles Dickens' works, often quoted as his favorite child, there's a hopeful quote that expresses his belief, and it is simply that simple love and truth will be strong in the end, and will ultimately be stronger in the end than any evil misfortune in the world. So there you go. Those are two other kind of quotes that emphasize the meaning of when love is gone, and emphasize the meaning of the next scene that we are about to read. So I know that I said when I pick up this book again. However, I've been chatting away. So yes, we will read the next part right now. I will reread a little bit so that we can catch up to ourselves from last night. His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick!" This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect. For again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in his prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly. "To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me. And if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one. This is the even-handed dealing of the world," he said. "There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth." "You fear the world too much," she answered gently. "All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. and I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion gain engrosses you. Have I not? What then? He retorted. Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you. She shook her head. Am I? Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until in good season we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man. I was a boy, he said impatiently. Your own feeling tells you that you were not what you are, she returned. I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and I can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words, no, never. In what then? In a change in nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end, in everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. If this had never been between us, said the girl, looking mildly, but with steadiness upon him. Tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? No. He seemed to yield to the justice of supposition, in spite of himself. He said with a struggle, You think not. I would gladly think otherwise if I could, she answered. Heaven knows. When I've learned a truth like this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be, but if you were to free today, tomorrow, yesterday, I can even believe that you would choose a dowerless girl. You who, in your very confidence with her, weigh everything by gain, or choosing her, if for a formal moment you were false enough to one of your guiding principles to do so. I do not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow. I do, and I release you. With a full heart. For the love of him you once were. He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. You may. The memory of what is past makes me hope you will have pain in this. A very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. She left him, and they parted. Spirit, said Scrooge, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me? One shadow more, exclaimed the ghost. No more, cried Scrooge. No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there, than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count, and unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I not have given to be one of them? Though I never could have been so rude, no. I wouldn't for the wealth of all the world have crushed it, that braided hair, that torn it down, and for the precious little shoe, I wouldn't have plucked it off, God bless my soul, to save my life. As to measuring her waist in sport, as they did, bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for a punishment, and never come straight again. And yet I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes, and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond a price. In short, I should have liked, I do confess, to have had the lightest license of a child, and yet been a man to know its value. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with a laughing face and plundered dress, was borne towards it, the center of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting and the struggling, and the onslaught that was made on the defenseless porter, then sealing him with chairs for ladders, to dive into his pockets, despoil them of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him round the neck, pummel his pack, and kick his legs in irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received, the terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into its mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed the fictitious turkey glued on the wooden platter, the immense relief of finding this a false alarm, the joy and gratitude and ecstasy, they were all indescribable alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlor, and by one stair at a time up to the top of the house, where they went to bed, and so subdued and subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter lean fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother and his own fireside. And when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful and full of promise, might have called him father, and being the springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. "Well," said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon." "Who was it?" "Guess." "How can I? Tut, I don't know," she added, in the same breath laughing as he laughed. "Mr. Scrooge?" Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside, I could scarcely keep from seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe. Spirit, said Scrooge in a broken voice, remove me from this place.
I told you. These were shadows of the things that have been, said the ghost. That they are what they are, do not blame me.
Remove me, Scrooge exclaimed. I cannot bear it. He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer! In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connecting that with its influence over him. He seized the extinguisher cap, and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form. But though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Here is the photo for you all. And that is where we stop for tonight. Join us tomorrow as we start Stave 3, the second of the 3 spirits. Have a good night.